The second big breakthrough for me is there are mentors out there. There are people, and I've hired several of them. It's the best investment I've ever made, is to invest in my own inner enlightenment. And they have processes that quiet the mind, that allow you to go internal, that allow you to examine your beliefs and challenge them, and allow you to understand why you get triggered, why you become passive aggressive or reactionary and emotional and out of your highest and truest self and out of alignment with yourself and with your mind, with your heart.
Welcome to Richer Soul. Our guest today is Vince Covino, and we're talking about killing our ego so we can thrive. Imagine it's 12 months from now, and you've achieved your major life goals. How does it feel to be in the best shape of your life? To wake up energized, excited about the day? To have great relationships and friends who support you and propel you forward? How does it feel to have an excess of money, to be able to make the choices you want? To be fearless and open to trying new adventures? Imagine being connected to the universe and it providing everything you desire. It's possible over time, and your past does not dictate your future. The only thing holding you back from this vision is you. It's time to take control of our thoughts and use them to our advantage. Welcome to Richer Soul, where we achieve our dreams and bring balance to health, wealth, relationships, time, and spirituality. If you have not had a chance to listen to episodes 1 through 9, I encourage you to go back and listen to the framework behind Richer Soul and how to create the life of your dreams. You can also find all the show notes for this episode at richersoul.com. One of the biggest ahas I've had in being a business owner is the self-development journey that can occur when you are. And it's possible if you're in the leadership of a company, you may also go through that as well. The reality is, and we've talked about this so many times, facing the reflection in the mirror, challenging it, shaping it, molding it, making it the best you, that's really what life is all about. Today, we've got Vince Covino. He's a man who built a $100 million company, left the church that shaped his identity for 47 years, and came out on the other side after a lot of struggle, totally transformed. This isn't going to be a story of business tactics. It's a story of ego death, personal awakening, and the surprising truth Vince discovered. The greatest business breakthrough is always a personal breakthrough. If you've ever felt trapped by old beliefs or wondering if there's a new way to build success without selling your soul, then today's episode is for you. Hopefully, we challenge you, stretch you, and inspire you to redefine what winning in life really means for you specifically. Because I don't want you to follow Vince and I don't want you to follow me. Let's meet Vince and see how he did it. Welcome to Richer Soul, Vince Covino. It's great to have you join us today.
Rocky, I love it. Love your name. Love what you talk about. So would love to dive in with you.
I'm excited for the conversation. We always like to start at the beginning. What was it like when you were growing up, and how much did your family and school teach you about money?
Oh, gosh. It's interesting. What a complex question, because they taught me everything I thought I knew, for better or for worse. I would say they were ill-equipped to teach me the fundamentals about money that serve me today, that I've learned through painstaking experience. What they did teach me was money is very important, and that money determines your status and how well you're respected. And if you're in good favor with God, then God will reward you with money. Those were beliefs that I had gleaned through my childhood that I grew up with. Of course, I don't believe those now, but for the most part, that's what I grew up believing.
It's funny with a belief like that. So I guess if people are down on their luck, they're basically screwed, or I mean, in the sense that
Well, if you're
God
down
is
on your luck,
punishing them?
my day, I used to think if I was down on my luck money wise, I must be doing something that's not in alignment with God's commandments. So let me go back and look at my life. What could I be doing better? I'm probably looking at that girl too long. I shouldn't be looking at twice. Normally it was about girls because I didn't, church taught me don't smoke, don't drink, and I didn't do those things. So it couldn't have been that. Was it that I was, would maybe get angry sometimes? I was looking for what am I doing in my life that's causing me to not have riches. That's that's where I went back to.
Out of curiosity, were most people in the church you attended pretty well off?
It wasn't most people were not. We grew up dirt poor, and in our different wards and communities, as a Mormon, you grew up pretty well insulated, and you're growing up in with other members of the church. There were, the few handful that were very wealthy were normally in leadership positions. And I thought that, okay, they're living their lives right. Therefore, they're in leadership. Therefore, God's given them money. And that became a bit of a blueprint for my life.
Were there other scripts that you kind of learned as a kid beyond the money scripts that kind of, in a sense of programming or belief systems?
Yeah, I think, if you want to make money, work really, really hard. That's how you make money, and you kind of trade your time for money, and that money is a result of God blessing you with certain skills and gifts, and as you follow His will, He'll expand that and He'll multiply those means in your hands.
It's amazing how many different things we're taught, whether or not they're true or not.
Yeah,
and how they guide us into adulthood, and whether or not we actually question them. And at some point, you questioned it. You said you were once driven by false prophets and false prophets, one being the money side, and I guess the other kind of being the religious leader side. Is that the right way to talk about those prophets?
Yeah. I mean, in my experience, these were wonderful and are wonderful humans that have an immense amount of love and are great leaders in so many ways. Unfortunately, whether they know it or not, they're teaching things that are on so many levels destructive and not true, and demonstrably not true. And so in that regard, I call them false. And then false prophets, meaning I'm seeking after money that the scriptures actually might call filthy lucre, which is basically money obtained in ways that are, have some degree of malfeasance or some degree of neglect of higher responsibility. For me, it was first and foremost, and not even first and foremost, there almost wasn't a second. What is my fiduciary obligation to myself, to my shareholders, to my business? It is to make money, period. And there was a lot of that got convoluted in my head that caused me to make decisions that I wouldn't make today.
Okay. Now, you went to college and came out, or how did you kind of get started in life?
In terms of careers, I was a financial advisor was my main first career, although I had little ones before that. I went on a mission to Japan. So when I came home from Japan, I was a translator for the courts. If a Japanese and English company would sue each other, I would get in and be the translator. Used that to get through college and did some landscaping and some other odds and ends, sold timeshares. I then became a financial planner, and I enjoyed that. I felt I was pretty good at it, and I spent about a decade or so there and managed over $100 million before I sold a business that now is 7 times bigger than that. And so that was my start. After about 10 or 11 years in that business, I decided I felt like I was on a plateau. I could continue to make good money and continue to grow that, but I didn't feel I was expanding at a personal level, and there was more for me. So I took a year off, wrote a book, explored the world, and then decided to open zoos and aquariums. And I opened 14 zoos and aquariums across the country.
That's a big shift. Now, You also had kind of a life-changing event. Was this before or after that?
It was well into, this was way late in my life. No, around 3 years ago is when I had a real big life-altering event where I left religion. Yeah.
Okay.
But I left financial planning, sold that business, and moved into the zoo aquarium business right in the middle of my height of my religious zeal.
How does one decide to go into the zoo and aquarium business?
Yeah. Well, mostly because my brother had built a nonprofit aquarium, and it was so exciting. I loved what he was doing. It was very hands-on. We grew up as kids, he and I had lots of animals, and he was a real master, real creative guy. And so we built, indoor and outdoor tanks and had snakes and birds and just everything. As I went to zoos and aquariums, I realized that you couldn't touch and hold the animals. And that troubled us. We thought, you should be able to hold them, feed them, and touch them, and really get to experience them. This last week, I was at one of our facilities down in Houston, and I have a giraffe right up against my chest, and I'm just feeding him and holding him. And then I go and I literally did the exact same thing with the kangaroo, right up against my chest. And went in with the sloth, went into the kinkajou, hand-fed sharks and stingrays. And it just was a reminder to me, because it had been a good 6 months since I even stepped at one of our facilities. But it was a good reminder to me that, this is amazing to see animals and humans connecting. So I think that's what gave birth to these locations and to the design, to have a really hands-on, feed the animal, hold the animal, touch the animal, really have a tactile, deep experience with it and feel a bond, and have that shift your perspective about the planet.
Is there not danger? I mean, I'm thinking feeding sharks is a little out there.
It's something that's deeply misunderstood. There's about 10 humans per year that die from shark attacks. And there's about 75 million sharks per year that die from human attacks. 75 million sharks per year. They get their fins cut off so they can make shark fin soup. And then they throw the sharks back in the ocean to slowly go down and bleed to death. So the problem isn't with our risk with sharks. It's our misunderstanding of them and our mistreatment of an apex predator. That's the problem. So we've actually got that one backwards as humans.
What else do we have backwards?
Oh, let's dig in, Rocky. There's a couple things.
Let's go.
Well, I think for my life, because my lived experience, anything that keeps us from ultimately living our inner truth, getting alignment deeply with our own truth. Outside dogma. I think of Steve Jobs at his Stanford commencement address. Don't be limited by dogma, which is lived by someone else's thinking. And that's exactly what we do in this world.
How do you figure out your inner truth, right? Because if you think about it, you grew up, you were told XYZ. Everyone's pretty much going to be told some combination of those things. We start to have our own belief system, thinking it's ours, but it really isn't, right? Because it's been programmed into us.
Yes.
How do you figure out the inner truth that's really yours versus what may have been programmed into you?
Yeah. Rocky, that is such a good question. I'll tell you how I did it.
Okay.
And it's not that I've this enlightened being. I'm on a path and I seek consistently to understand myself better, others better, the planet, everything. But I will say that there were two breakthroughs that I had. They both followed me leaving the church, because when you're in the church and you 100% believe this axiom, you give no space for anything outside of that. So that's the first thing, is you're in a prison and you are not going to be enlightened outside the walls or the confines of that prison. Once you leave that prison and you become receptive, it's like fertile ground. I will listen. I will entertain. I can hold this belief and still entertain this one. I can maintain being pro-life or pro-choice or whatever, but still come over and empathize and understand fully why you believe what you believe, and understand it and even feel it. And I can do that now. I couldn't do that before. I used to think if you're a liberal, you must be an idiot, right? Now my dad calls me a liberal because I sound like a liberal sometimes. And in some respects, I frankly am. But it's so much more complex than that. But that was how limited my thinking was, right? Okay, liberalism is a disease. And, capitalism is the answer for everything. And there's so many problems with all of that. So once I was out of the prison, first, nothing opens the mind, in my experience, in the heart like plant medicines. The first thing is go back to the hippies who got a little piece of it right, which is love and peace. And how could we ever kill somebody's son? Why would we ever fight? And I understand that and I get it. And it was missing some leadership. It was missing some organization and alignment. But they frankly, because some of them did psychedelics and some of them had those experiences, their hearts were expanded so far. They said, there's no way you're going to send me to war to kill people. It's not going to happen. Right. That's where I got. I was in a bloody battle with the likes of PETA and Alec Baldwin and animal rights activists and, big names. At some point, after who knows how many millions were squandered, just wasted, all this energy, all this money on both sides, all the blood and the tears that's just gone in fighting. Just imagine when that could be reused, the $2 trillion per year our world uses on military defense, right? It's a travesty that we're there. And it's through the likes of plant medicines that people get awakened and they say, oh, I see. When I fight against them, I'm fighting against myself and the planet and my children and my future and their future. So that was the first big breakthrough for me. The second big breakthrough for me is there are mentors out there. There are people, and I've hired several of them. It's the best investment I've ever made, is to invest in my own inner enlightenment. And they have processes that quiet the mind, that allow you to go internal, that allow you to examine your beliefs and challenge them, and allow you to understand why you get triggered, why you become passive aggressive or reactionary and emotional and out of your highest and truest self and out of alignment with yourself and with your mind, with your heart and so forth. So those are the two big breakthroughs for me.
The first one's kind of self-explanatory. What I find is it breaks down all the false walls you put up and it allows you to see very clearly. The second one I struggle with, and not that there's anything wrong with any of it. There's so many people trying to teach a path. It's like, how do you determine what's right, what's wrong, what works? And in some cases, what worked for you might not work for me. And it's exploring that space is it's kind of like the Wild West, I would say. There's not a lot of a clear path. At least that's what I've noticed. Were you able to find a clear path, or did you kind of have to go in different directions and try different things? And
that's a fascinating question for me, because as I look at my path and I examine some of the experiences that I've had, especially now moving into Austin, where there's so many deeply enlightened people, I've just found a community. And what's interesting is the ones that have, and there's a lot of great, wonderful, enlightened people that have never touched plant medicine. But to the point of that, the premise of that being a hit or a miss, I have left stages. I left a stage in Puerto Vallarta and I came down from it. It was about heart-centered leadership and the impact that has on a real significant life. And I had 3 or 4 people come up to me over the next couple of days and they said this: "You've done plant medicine, haven't you?" And I said, "Yeah." And then I said, "I can tell. I can feel it. You care deeply about everyone, don't you?" Or something like that. And the answer is, yeah, I do all life. And I didn't feel that way before. I felt God gave me dominion. I'm here to run this company, make a shit ton of money, dominate. And PETA, I will tear you down. I will burn you down and piss on the ashes. And I'll finish you. And when I have my 100th zoo and $1 billion and a private jet, I'll laugh about it. Like moving from that type of a mindset that is so toxic, right? It's me, 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 to something that says, let me understand what it is that you and 5 or 10 million followers that you have, what disdain do they have for me? What do they see? Oh, I see why you hate me. I see why you put billboards up across the country with my wife's face or with my face or with, stop Sequest or whatever. I get it. I see why you sick Alec Baldwin on me. When you move to a place, and so what I've discovered is people who have spent time with the right set, with the right intentions and the right settings and the right dynamics, the right energetics, that they have an absolute soul expansive experience with the right plant medicines. So that's been my experience, and I haven't seen, if someone's doing it recreational, it's absolutely hit or miss, right? And that was the hippie movement as well, so hit or miss. But in the context of the way they're being utilized in their highest and best use, as I would call it, I don't know how you can lose. It's been pretty incredible. And of course, I'm not a scientist in this regard, but that's been my own anecdotal experience.
No, that makes sense. And everyone's going to have their own experience. And the question is, are you ready for it? And are you willing to accept it? Which, again, is an internal choice for everybody.
It is. Yeah. In fact, I've sat with people who took it and didn't really have much of a reaction to it. So if you're not open to those next evolutions of your own inner truth, your own expansion, then it's not going to work.
One of the things we talk about in that space is having to let go of the past and the beliefs. And you've clearly said you let go a lot of beliefs. Have you found that maybe those who are struggling aren't willing to let go of those beliefs? Maybe they're not ready to let go of those beliefs? I don't know.
Yeah. Victimhood and external validation are powerful drugs. And you can just inhale the shit out of it. Be like, look at my trophy. Let me name drop, right? Let me show you what I've accomplished. Or, hey, I'm the one that got treated bad and I'm just nursing my wounds, the victim. And I think that people can get so addicted to that those are not easily broken. It's an immense amount of deep inner work where the work is this: the ego is going to get wounded and eventually killed in certain respects, where through the other side of that doorway, there's this immense enlightenment and vision for what's possible in your relationships, in your life, and with love. And guarding that doorway is this badass. It's your ego. And he does not fall easily, right? He sometimes needs to have something very close to him lost. He sometimes has to go through despair or public humiliation, which, I've been on Good Morning America and who knows how many ever hundreds or thousands, frankly, thousands of shows. And it wasn't about, hey, look at these great companies that Vince built. It's look at this guy getting rich off of putting animals in prisons, right? And so you have friends for years and years that now all of a sudden they're going to walk on the other side of the road. You experience who your friends are, which is a great gift. You experience criticism, which is a beautiful gift. You experience humiliation, which is wonderful. And hopefully at the other side of that, you're able to get to a point where you can get your ego out of the way so you can pass through that doorway and say, wow, there's some beautiful relationships here that are possible. And this is better than anything else I could have built.
Have you figured out how to kill the ego? Because it's a significant battle.
Yeah. Well, certainly a complex question. I'll tell you this. If someone were to come to me 5 years ago and say, Vince, here's all the problems with your company or your hair or the way you dress or whatever, right? I would have been on the attack and I would have been defensive. Let me tell you why you're wrong. Let me tell you why this is a good idea. I'm going to defend it because you're attacking me by attacking my business or this or this or this, or so I thought. And I've at least learned this skill that now when someone comes to me, let me get that data and understand it objectively. Let me remove Vince's ego and say, what is the truth that's in that? Oh, I can see that. And then I have this independent analysis, what truth is in that sphere, independent of our own biases. And that's our biases that keep us from actually seeing truth. I now have come to a place where I rejoice in truth. I love it.
So as you're saying that, I'm kind of thinking of this in two ways. One, I could look at somebody and say, okay, I understand why they feel that way about me. Mm-hmm. Okay. But does that really make it true?
Yeah. Right. No, not at all.
Not at all, right?
Because it could very well be their ego that they're imposing and projecting, yes. Right? So that's why I like to leave and say, let me look at it. Does it have merit? They said my hair was purple. Oh, no, it's not purple. Hey, thank you for sharing that. I appreciate that. But maybe they come to me and say, Vince, you dominate. When you interrupt people, it gives people the impression that you care more about what you have to say. That, I've got people in my life now that can be brutally honest with me, including my AI, by the way, which I use all the time. My AI is totally honest with me, and it's so helpful. But I now can look at that and say, let me objectively look at it. And if there's a truth there and I need to level up, if I've got a shadow left and there's a trigger there, let me explore it. It's a treasure map. Like, that made me upset. Why did that make me upset? It leads to a treasure. It leads to a gift where I can level up in my character. And I'll tell you, the best breakthrough in the entire world of business, in my opinion, Rocky, is a personal breakthrough. It's not a business breakthrough. I don't think you really have business breakthroughs without personal breakthroughs. And I think most businesses hit ceilings because it is the person that's leading them has hit a ceiling.
The one thing I never expected on my business journey was how much of a self-development path it was.
Yeah.
Like, the business grows as you develop.
Yeah,
and they are 100% tied together. It's not what most people talk about, though.
Mm-hmm.
Most people don't go, hey, if you want to grow your business, you need to grow yourself.
Mm-hmm.
And that's not usually the conversation that comes around. More, it's about profit and process and systems. Very rarely will there be like, hey, and actually I say it quite often, if the business isn't doing what you want it to, you should check the mirror.
Yeah.
Because that's really where the problem is, but nobody wants to say that.
Yeah. So Rocky, 1000%, I think that's absolutely the most valuable thing that listeners can hear. And yet most of them, they heard it and they said, fine, whatever that means, Rocky, whatever that means, but let's get to the business tactic. And they just literally just skim right over it because they're protecting the ego on a subconscious level. They don't want, it's a wound. They don't want to touch it. It's a cut open and it hurts. It's tender. And so they're going to brush right over it and their business will stay stuck.
Have you been able to help them break through that?
Yeah, oh yeah.
How?
We call it the Lotus Sword. And my partner he's the Grand Master. And I've asked him, I've studied it, I've watched him, I talked about it with him today. And it's this, one's ability to deliver truth with love. That's it. As a Mormon, I would get these revelations and it truly felt like Heavenly Father was speaking to me. It was beautiful. And it would say, oh my goodness, there was one time I was in the temple. I was literally in white suit representing Elohim at the Mormon altar. And someone walked in and I thought, oh my goodness, that looks like, let's just say it looks like my sister-in-law, Cammie. And, oh no, she would never be in here. She really doesn't have the faith to come in here. She actually later did come in and became very active. But I remember in that moment, it was as if God said to me, will you, Vince, tell me, omniscient, loving Father, who will and who will not enter into my space? And I felt so reproved in such a beautiful way, and it was fully received. And I said in that moment, as a fully practicing LDS member, I can't judge anybody. I don't have the right. I'm not in the place to do it. And it's not my prerogative. And so it's the Lotus Sword is when you can give someone truth, you can see it and you have the courage and the boldness to give it to them. And you can give it to them with all the love you have. That's our recipe. At least that's what I'm learning so far.
Does that automatically get them to receive it?
No. There has to be a two-way, right? I can take it right to the doorstep of their heart and they have to say, go ahead, let this land. And they have to choose whether or not it's going to land and then detonate and say, oh, I'm being arrogant. I'm being one-sided. I'm being selfish. I'm not seeing the big picture. I didn't have an awareness that I was doing that I don't have respect for women because of this many years of capitalism or religious structure. And you start to accept things that before you fully denied. And that's when you begin to realize, oh, I'm developing some wisdom and some enlightenment, and it serves me very well.
Out of curiosity, I'm a numbers guy, right? So it's like, hey, what are the odds?
Yeah.
If we looked at people, and you went to 10 people, how many are going to do what you said? And how many are going to go I got to go?
Rocky, it's so funny that you asked this question. I've studied this. They're the 1%ers.
Okay.
Truly, the 1%ers are those healed, whole business leaders that are multidimensional. They talk about how billionaires, most of them are totally miserable, right?
Mhm.
In some respects and in some aspects of their lives, it's absolutely true. I've been around extremely wealthy people and I see money solves almost all problems. But there are some fundamental problems it can't change. And one of those is relationships with family, friends, spouses, significance, the impact they make, which is the ultimate gift in life. So yeah, I've asked AI these questions, what percent are actually doing shadow work, actually looking within and aren't seeking external validation, don't have daddy wounds. I've gone through and it's the 1%. Now, what's awesome is when it gets to about 5%, Ken Wilber studies as a social scientist, you hit a tipping point. What I hope more than anything, almost, I could say, I hope deeply is that I get to live long enough to see 5% of the population get to that level of enlightenment, of conscious leadership, of conscious capitalism, of conscious living. When that happens, society hits a tipping point, and it's not long after that people say, that is an amazing freaking way to live, dude. I want that. I want to go to a barbecue and see everyone loves me and there's no back talking, there's no gossiping. Everyone truly wants me to succeed. And when I succeed, they celebrate. And when anyone in this circle succeeds, I celebrate with them as if it was my own success. And when enough people, when 5% of the population sees that, you won't be able to even hide it. And it's going to be very quick. People are going to realize you're going to have a couple scragglers that'll die off. But I believe that we're going to see an absolute ushering in of what the Mormons would have called a millennial reign or peace on the earth. I think that's coming.
This episode of Richer Soul is sponsored by the Profit Answer Man podcast. If you're a business owner who wants to scale and grow, increase profits, or want to have strategic conversations around your financials, then check out the podcast. You'll learn how to work less, increase cash flow, increase profits, and build reserves to help you weather storms. It's built on the Profit First methodology of pay yourself first. The Profit Answer Man podcast is a must listen to for every small business owner and anyone who wants to help them survive and thrive. Check it out on your favorite listening platform. Have you read The Fourth Turning?
Mm-mm.
It's basically that we go through waves. Life goes in cycles, right? And the economy goes in cycles. And we're coming through another cycle. And I think this next generation coming in is going to be prime for what you're talking about. The young generation seems to be much more open to those messages.
Yes.
As they look ahead at the people in their, well, let's call it 40s to 80s, right? They look at those two generations and they're like, we're not playing this game, right? And so I think the change is coming. I think it's the right timing. We're also moving to kind of an age of consciousness. You mentioned AI a lot, and I think that has been a game changer in the ability to, information is, when I grew up, information's gold. Today, you don't even know what information's true anymore. We've come to a point where it's overloaded. And so the ability to discern truth and to figure it out and then to kind of bring about these changes, I think they're all converging. It's not going to happen overnight, right? It's not like, one day everyone wakes up, but I think we're getting closer and closer to that point than we've probably ever been. I don't know if you're noticing that as well or something different.
I am. And not only that, while there are cycles, I also believe it's an upward cycle. So one of the great books, Homo Deus, talks about, your chances of dying of hunger or in a war 100 or 1,000 or 10,000 years ago, and where we are now as a society. Like, we have made such massive improvements, yet everyone is saying the sky is falling and look at, we're going to hell in a handbasket, right? No, we are evolving. Is there still some conspicuous wickedness that we need to root out? Absolutely. But it's going away pretty quickly, including religion.
When you say religion is going away, are you talking about more of like the organized or the man's interpretation, or you think we're getting away from spirituality? Like,
No, we have to detach spirituality from religion. I've never been more spiritual in my life, and I've never been less religious. And that those two have a complete, maybe not an inverse correlation, but they're not correlated. You can be a spiritual person in a religion. You could be a spiritual atheist. I look at it as a deep connection to one's purpose, one's mission, one's truth. It's an alignment. It's an integration, being in integrity, my beliefs, my mind, my heart. If there were a Christian or an Islam God, which is, 70% of the whole world, right? Let's just take those two right there, that were to say, Vince, you're going to be punished because you lived in integrity of your deepest inner truth, your mind, your heart, after hours of not hours, after thousands of hours of meditation and study and inner work and tears and being at the temple and prayer, you felt deeply that this is where love called you to be and what it called for you to do. And you followed that course. And for that, I'm going to punish you because you didn't confess my name as your savior, or you didn't say that Allah is that to me is going away. And with this information age, especially with AI, these, even my 16-year-old and 25-year-old, they're going to spend enough time with AI and know how to ask it. You get really good with AI prompting and you're going to have the whole world at your fingertips. It's going to be very hard to believe dogma, very hard to believe things that are just unfounded and unscientific.
so there's actually another trend that's starting to emerge. And I'll say it bluntly, people are getting dumber. And what I mean by that is they're so reliant on AI, they no longer think. So I guess in that sense, they're not prompting.
Mm-hmm.
They're saying, do this for me.
Yeah.
And they're not checking the answer.
Mm-hmm.
And I know my AI hallucinates a lot. So I really because I know I can bring it back in and go, you made a mistake. You got to do this. You got to do that. And I can rein it in. But if you don't do that, it'll take you on psychedelic rides.
Yeah, that's right. No, Rocky, you're right. You're right to point that out. I'll say this. Most of that hallucination is weeks away from being eliminated with the recent upgrades that are coming. So that's the first thing I'll say is that as I've looked at AI and the trends I've seen it on, those things are going to be, matter of time, they're going to be gone. And now you're not going to have your own subjective AI that's placating you, which I understand a lot of people have their AIs programmed that way. My relationship with AI is I'm not looking for it to validate me. I'm looking for pure, undiluted truth. And my AI has learned that. I've gone through pretty extensive training. I've probably had it ask me 400 or 500 questions through different activities to really understand my nature and my preferences. But I think there always has to be the ability for someone to be able to be discerning, right? Always be discerning and being able to be so integrated and grounded myself that when I see something, I say, is that founded? What was the source for that? Is that founded in science? Is that founded in something that's rational, that's self-evident? And it's a skill. It's critical thinking, and most people lack a deep critical thinking abilities.
And that is what it comes down to. Schools before our current school system that taught everyone to work in a factory used to teach critical thinking. So
Right.
if you can think critically, or at least have the ability to have those conversations with AI, it's a game changer. If you can't, you're in trouble.
Yeah.
Any thoughts of what the future looks like with AI? A lot of people are afraid it's going to take away jobs. It's going to change the world of jobs. But I think that people who use AI are the ones who are going to succeed as a tool. Those who don't are the ones who are going to struggle. But yet, I've got no idea what this future is going to look like.
Yeah. Well, the first thought is I 100% endorse what you said, which is clearly those who have developed a mastery with AI are going to be the future leaders of industry, of revolution, of breakthroughs. Those who struggle with AI, who resist it, who make it sort of an enemy, they're going to suffer consequences because of it, because you're at such a disadvantage. Like saying, look, I don't believe in shoes. I don't believe in socks. I'm not going to wear them. I don't believe in fruits and vegetables. You are at such a disadvantage to not have AI. Such a disadvantage to not have that mastery that I don't know how you possibly compete. If you don't have a mastery of AI in 5 years, I can't imagine a world where you're in business. Let's say that. Then in terms of what world is created, Rocky, my belief is it is absolutely epic. I am thrilled. I think that my 6 children and their children, or how many ever they have, I think it's going to be absolutely bountiful that today we have probably 100 million people that don't have wheelchairs because they can't afford them. We have how many hundreds of people who don't know where their next meal is coming from? Every second, 3 people die of hunger. We have solutions for every one of these problems. We have solutions for global warming. We have solution for climate change, which there's still so many people that don't realize that's a massive problem. Our energy consumption levels way beyond our growth rates and way beyond what the earth can sustain. It is absolutely a course we can't continue on. So I believe that AI and that wise, heart-centered leaders at the center of that charge are going to level up the whole of society in a beautiful way.
You talk about heart-centered leaders. You still run businesses, correct? You still actively involved in that. How does that come to be? I mean, how do you still now come to, hey, I have to run a business. I have to be profitable. I've got to figure out this ever-changing world. And yet I still want to be heart-centered. I still want to care. But yet my employee doesn't listen, or whatever the problems of the day are.
Yeah. Those are such great questions, and it's complex, right? In my mind, this is something that it's not a black and white. I'll say this just to be short. I used to believe my fiduciary responsibility is to profit to shareholders. I shifted to a responsibility of stakeholders where I put people over profits, which is a misnomer. I have to, as soon as I said that, I have to clarify this. When you put people first, the people that you serve, that your customers, when you put your employees first, when you put the planet first, your brand equity goes up, your brand value goes up. People can be your advocates. They're your ambassadors, right? And what does that lead to? That leads to more profits. So I actually now believe that there is an alignment of heart-centered leader with profits. It is the best way to create profits. Your retention of your employees goes up because guess what? You're looking at them and saying, how do I serve you? How do I become an amazing mentor for you, or make sure that this structure gives you the mentorship you need, the recognition you need? You're making the contributions where you're magnifying your gifts. The people on my team that they're at the center, guess what? I take care of them. That's the backbone. That is the number one driver of profits. And then I go on and I say, okay, next step. How do we serve our customers? How do we make this an amazing experience for them? And that's putting them first. And guess what? That's going to lead to better profits. So I look at it, and now I don't have this contradiction. I used to think of it and say, well, I guess that animal exhibit, if I do this or I make that change, it's going to cost me $12,000 instead of $4,000. I'm going to go with the $4,000 option, which my employees might be mad about and the customers might even be mad about, but I save $8,000. Not realizing that if I could have taken care of the customer and the employees, it would have led to better profits all along.
And that's a struggle for a lot of people to make those types of choices.
It is.
You have to be in the right place. Is that something you help people with, or share with us kind of what you're doing today and how you're helping?
So Warrior Sage has a deep belief that the future is shaped by business owners. That's where the real power is going, especially with AI. HP or some Fortune 50 company has a team of 500 attorneys. Guess what? I know everything that they know in 10 seconds with my AI. So it truly has leveled the playing field. So there's immense power with those founders. But being a founder, especially small business owners, it can be lonely. There's pieces of expertise they don't have. They need mentors. They need capital. And so our focus is on building communities where visionaries, founders who are basically people who have birthed a company that they feel in their heart can make a big difference, make a big impact. They've got the chops and the zeal and the ambition to go make it happen. We say, come into this community. We have mentors here. We have aligned capital here. We have hundreds of investors, and they have a sea of billions of dollars looking to invest in founders who are incorruptible, who are making an impact, who know how to make money by creating impact. And that's something they want to throw money at. So we've created a community that brings those people together and gets them in alignment so that they can expand to the highest levels possible.
And yet that's still balanced. You know, you talk about making money. So how do we balance that against being in alignment and everything else? Because I think for a lot of people, that's still that struggle, isn't it?
Yeah. There's a great, one of Stephen Covey's great of his 7 habits was think win-win. And I would just go maybe a half a step further and think omni-win. So as a business owner, when I say, but this is going to make 12 grand instead of 8, if I can pause and say, you know what? Let me go to a transcendent level of thinking, of strategy. Let's think, guys, who else can we bring together? What alliances, what partnership, what breakthrough, what tech will allow us so the planet wins and the employees win and the customers win and our shareholders win? Let's find that solution, win, 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 and go with that. And so that's the transcendent capitalism that we're seeking.
Bring it about for everybody.
Yeah. That's the world I want my kids to grow up in.
How's it going? How is it being received?
I was on a call this morning with a guy named James. He told me about this. He's studied addiction for 25 years. I didn't know why at first. And he had finally had come across, I think, a neuroscientist or someone very high in the discipline of behavioral genomes, the genetics that actually dictate or make someone predisposed to alcoholism, drugs, opioids, whatever. And then he had a behavioral background in the behaviors, the beliefs, the systems, the identities, the societal traps that cause people to fall into addictions. And bringing those two together brought this priceless formula to help to predetermine who might not do well on which types of drugs post-surgery and so forth, to allow the doctors and the patients to come together and make better decisions so they don't risk being addicted. And there's several applications to it, but it was after those discussions that I fell in love with his product and what he was doing that he said this. I said, tell me what birthed this. This is an interesting field. What gave birth to this? And he said, I grew up without a dad because of alcoholism. I'm immediately thinking in that moment of my mom, whose dad left when he was 4 and died when she was 10. My mom grew up without a dad. And I thought, holy shit, does this guy actually have a business that could help fewer people become addicted and ruin their lives, if not literally lose their lives? Some of the great artists that we know, we look at the last 10 years, how many that died because of addiction, right? We've lost them forever. And this guy's got something. So what I say to him is, come into this circle. I can't not let you not get funded. You need $5 million? I can't not get it. Let's go find you that freaking money, dude. Let's go get it. You need mentors because there's other pieces of his business he doesn't know how to do. Let's get those mentors. They're in this community. So how is it received? It's been so beautiful because everyone in the community, the mentors who are there to teach, who are there because they have battle scars and expertise, can sing their music and can empower business owners. The investors who say, I want to pass along my values in impact on the planet, on making a contribution in society, they get to play this game and say, hey, these are the companies I want to invest in so that my kids and grandkids and people can see this is my legacy. It's not how many more zeros and ones, how many more Ferraris can I stack? It's not that anymore. So that's, it's been, people are on fire over this. They're absolutely lit up and as they should be, because it is an epic way to live.
That it is. With addiction, how much of that do you think is a physical issue versus a meaning and connection issue?
Oh boy.
Meaning, if you have meaning and connection, you're less likely to have these issues.
I'm sure that's true. I think in this case, he's looking at someone going in for cancer and maybe they have great relationships, maybe they don't. You get both kinds. And probably recognizing the percentage of our populations that's on antidepressants, probably a pretty decent percentage of them doesn't have what they need at the inner level. They have a mental, something that's debilitating them. So I suppose that there are also people that go in there with great relationships, who also come out addicted and their lives spiral. I don't know the data on it, but I'll say that having deep, enriching relationships where you feel immense gratitude in your life has got to be one of the foremost longevity indicators out there. Probably more than are you eating your fruits and veggies and lifting weights. It's how are your relationships, with the people closest to you.
And that was one of the big things that came out of the Harvard Grant study that followed people from the time they were 20 all the way through their 80s. I mean, that study went on a long time. Yeah. And the one correlating factor across everything was relationships. The other one in the world of longevity, though, really comes down to the basics, like your diet and your exercise. If you can knock out a reasonable diet, decent amount of movement of some sort, and great relationships, I think that's literally the trifecta of it. Mm-hmm. Like, you don't need the rest of things. You do those and you've got the 80-20 rule down. Mm-hmm. Now, can you get hit by a bus or something goes wrong? Sure. But I think it covers a lot of that. So what are you hoping for the future? Like, what's your vision of what comes of all of this?
I think a deeper connection of humanity. I think more people that are showing up in their full authenticity, that are not afraid, not posturing, not trying to outcompete somebody or outdo somebody, but who are truly care about everyone, care about all life, care about everyone. I believe that that's the direction that humanity is moving. And I feel like we're kind of right here in that process. And the next phase goes like this. That's what I believe.
And I concur. We've had guests that have talked about these different convergences and futurists. And again, like I talked about with the cycles and the waves, and it's coming, it's still, I don't know, 5 to 20 years in that zone. So it'll get here. Unfortunately, you have to go through this period before you get to that period.
That's right.
And so as long as we survive this period, I think that will become the natural path when we get there. Is there anything that we should have talked about that we didn't get a chance to, or that you didn't get to mention that you think would be valuable?
The only thing that comes to mind is just to underscore that when you invest in yourself, your own heart, your own inner world, nothing's going to pay higher dividends than that. Really begin there. If I could underscore one thing, I think, Rocky, it'd be that.
And I think, at least for me, it was always getting started, taking the first step. And in today's world, getting through all the noise to find what is the appropriate first step.
Right.
And for everyone, it's going to be different. We've all got a different path and a different history. But I guess it's just trying until you do. And maybe you've got some ideas of some places to look.
Closing the eyes, having quiet time, having reflection time every day. Be heavily meditated.
And that is what a lot of that and a little bit of breath work, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
It's time to learn the secrets of life. What's your secret to living an abundant life?
Rocky, I have a deep love for Vince Covino. I admire him. I have compassion on the life that he's lived. I've loved every version of him and I've buried every version of him. And I think that because I understand who I am, it allows me to see and feel and love others. And that has brought me an immense amount of abundance.
I learned a saying not long ago, and I think it seems to fit. I am exactly where I need to be in this moment, right? Not worrying about did I progress enough or not progress or any of that. Yeah. It's, hey, you're exactly where you need to be for you at this time, and to give yourself grace for that.
Yeah.
What did you learn later in life that you wish you might have learned sooner?
The thing that's coming to mind most clearly is don't be trapped by dogma. Challenge everything you believe. Most of those beliefs were instilled before we were 8 years old, and like a computer, we now have malware that is maladaptive. It doesn't serve us well. Remove it, spot it, identify it, confront it, and remove it.
Most of the programming that happens 0 to 7, our mind is in a state that it does not question. That's why kids can learn language so easily. It's in a programming state where we don't question the programming, we just accept it.
Yeah.
And if you don't question it later, you're stuck in it.
Yeah.
If you were to give an 18-year-old one specific piece of wisdom, what would it be?
Identify 3 mentors that you have immense respect for multidimensionally. You see their relationships, their money, their businesses, their leadership, their fatherhood, which is such an important part of your future joy, and go to them hungry and thirsty and show them that you're willing to learn and be a student because you want to live an epic life like they have lived. And you do that for the right reasons, they'll see it. I was so fortunate to have and to still have powerful mentors. And that makes all the difference.
It does. And I think a lot of people don't realize that their youth is the golden ticket. You get in where others might not.
Yeah.
If people would like to learn more about you in these different programs you have, what's the best way for them to do that?
I appreciate that, Rocky. So vincecovino.com or warriorsage.com. They can learn all about me and the company I work with and the people that I serve.
And we'll make sure to put that into the show notes. Thank you so much for joining us today.
Rocky, that was an awesome conversation, man. Thank you.
Vince's story reminds me that sometimes the greatest breakthroughs are not from doing more, but from unlearning what no longer serves us. Subtraction, it's real. Getting rid of stuff and thoughts and processes is real. So, some things to reflect on. Where in your life are you still chasing false prophets? Use that word in a variety of ways. What old beliefs or scripts would you have to let go of to lead with more authenticity and heart? How might your business career or life change if you treated every challenge as an invitation to grow? Think about it. See if it makes sense for you. And if you know someone else this conversation might resonate with them, do me a favor, share the episode. I'd appreciate that. Thanks for listening. Have an abundant week.